Close your eyes for a moment and imagine this. You walk into a room, you don't speak first. You don't try to impress anyone. You don't explain who you are or what you do. You simply exist, calm, grounded, unbothered, and suddenly people notice, they lean in, they wonder about you, they feel something they can't explain. Why does this person feel different? Why does their silence feel louder than everyone else's noise? Why do I want their attention, even though they never asked for mine? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people never hear. The more you chase people, the less they value you. The more you detach from needing them, the more they crave you. This isn't manipulation. This is human psychology. This is power. And today I'm going to tell you the one shift that makes people crave your presence. The moment you do it, everything changes. Most people don't realize how much of their life is driven by one invisible addiction, the need to be approved of. They wake up and check their phone not out of curiosity, but out of hunger. They measure their worth by replies, by likes, by compliments, by whether someone noticed them. They shape their opinions to match the room. They shrink their personality to avoid conflict. They overextend themselves just to be liked. And every time they do that, they hand their power away. Chasing validation is subtle. It doesn't look desperate on the surface. It looks like being polite, agreeable, nice, and accommodating. But underneath, it's fear. Fear of rejection. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of standing alone. And people can feel that fear even if they can't name it. When someone senses that you need their approval, something inside them unconsciously pulls away. Not because they're cruel, but because human nature is drawn to strength, certainty, and self-sufficiency. Think about it. Have you ever noticed how people gravitate toward the person who doesn't seem to need the spotlight? The person who doesn't over-explain? The person who isn't begging for attention but somehow commands it anyway? That's not an accident. That's the energy of someone who has stopped outsourcing their worth. When you chase validation, you are constantly adjusting yourself. You're a mirror, reflecting whatever you think others want to see. But mirrors are forgettable. They don't lead. They don't inspire. They don't command presence. They just reflect. And no one craves a mirror. Becoming the source of value means you stop asking, do they like me? And start asking, do I like who I am becoming? It means you define your own standards instead of begging others to define them for you. It means you walk into a room already convinced of your worth, not hoping the room will convince you. There's a powerful shift that happens when you stop chasing validation. Your body language changes, your voice changes, your decisions change. You no longer overthink every word. You no longer replay conversations in your head, wondering if you said the right thing. You no longer shape-shift to fit every personality. You become consistent, and consistency is magnetic. When you are the source of value, you don't need applause to keep going. You don't collapse when someone criticizes you. You don't inflate when someone praises you. You become stable, grounded, anchored, and stability is rare in a world addicted to emotional chaos. Imagine how different your life would feel if you didn't need permission to be yourself, if you didn't need someone to say, you're good enough, before you believed it. If your confidence came from your discipline, your integrity, your growth, things no one could take away. People crave what they can't control. If your self-worth is in their hands, they control you. If your self-worth is in your hands, you become unpredictable, independent, and powerful. That uncertainty, that autonomy is what draws people in. You stop over-giving, you stop over-explaining, you stop over-apologizing, you start choosing, you start discerning, you start valuing your time and energy like currency, and suddenly your presence feels different. It feels deliberate. It feels intentional. It feels earned. There is a reason leaders, creators, and high performers often seem detached from public opinion. It's not because they don't care at all. It's because they don't depend on it. Their internal compass is stronger than external noise. They don't move because of applause. They move because of purpose. And people sense that inner direction. They trust it. They follow it. They crave proximity to it. When you become the source of value, your validation comes from progress, from discipline, from keeping promises to yourself, from becoming someone you respect when no one is watching. That kind of self-respect is quiet, but it's loud in its impact. It changes how you walk, how you speak, how you decide. You stop asking, am I enough for them? You start stating, this is who I am. And that statement doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to be true. The irony is this: the moment you stop trying to be liked by everyone is the moment the right people start to like you deeply. Authenticity filters, confidence filters, self-worth filters. The people who are aligned with you stay. The people who wanted control drift away. And that's not a loss, that's clarity. So if you want people to crave your presence, stop treating their approval like oxygen. Start breathing on your own. Become so grounded in your own value that attention becomes a byproduct, not a goal. Walk into rooms already full, not hoping to be filled. Speak from conviction, not from insecurity. Move from purpose, not from desperation. Because the moment you stop chasing validation, you stop being a seeker of value, and you become the source of it. Most people think power looks loud. They think it looks like dominance, aggression, emotion, intensity, reaction. They think the person who speaks the most, reacts the fastest, and expresses the most emotion is the one in control. But real power is quiet. Real power is the person who doesn't flinch, the person who doesn't take the bait, the person who doesn't let their emotions drag them around like a leash. Calm is power. When you master emotional control, you change the way people experience you. You stop being predictable. You stop being easy to manipulate. You stop being pulled into chaos that isn't yours. And people feel that. They sense that you're not easily shaken, not easily influenced, not easily moved off your center. Think about the last time you were around someone who stayed calm under pressure. Maybe everyone else was panicking, reacting, talking over each other. And this one person was composed, measured, quietly focused, didn't raise their voice, didn't explain themselves, didn't spiral. How did that make you feel? You probably trusted them more. You probably saw them as a leader. You probably felt safer around them. That's the psychological effect of emotional control. It creates authority without force, presence without noise, influence without coercion. Most people live in reaction mode. Someone criticizes them, they explode or shut down. Someone ignores them, they chase. Someone disrespects them, they lash out. Their emotional state is controlled by other people's behavior. That means other people control them. If someone can push a button and change your mood, they own you in that moment. Mastering emotional control is about taking that ownership back. It doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you choose how and when to express what you feel. It means your emotions inform you, but they don't command you. You become the observer, not the prisoner. Calm people are hard to read, hard to manipulate, hard to intimidate, hard to destabilize, and that's exactly why they command respect. When someone insults you and you don't react, it unsettles them. They expected control over your emotions and suddenly they don't have it. When someone tries to provoke you and you respond with silence or a measured response, they feel small, not because you attacked them, but because you didn't need to. Silence, when used intentionally, is louder than shouting. Imagine a confrontation where someone is trying to pull you into drama. They're raising their voice, throwing accusations, trying to dominate the moment, and you stay calm. Your voice stays steady. Your posture stays relaxed. You don't mirror their energy. You don't escalate. Who looks powerful in that moment? Not the one losing control, the one who keeps it. Emotional control also builds self-trust. And you know you won't sabotage yourself with impulsive reactions. You feel safer in your own mind. You can walk into difficult conversations, high-stakes decisions, and uncertain environments knowing you won't implode. That internal stability is magnetic. People are drawn to those who are solid when everything else is shaky. There's a reason calm people often rise into leadership. In chaos, people look for the steady one. In crisis, people follow the composed one. In uncertainty, people cling to the grounded one. Calm becomes a signal. This person can handle pressure. And pressure reveals character. When you master emotional control, you start choosing your battles. You stop wasting energy on petty arguments, meaningless conflicts, and ego-driven reactions. You realize that not every comment deserves a response. Not every insult deserves a defense. Not every misunderstanding needs a long explanation. You begin to understand something powerful. Your energy is finite. Your attention is valuable. Your reactions are a currency. Why spend that currency on people and situations that don't deserve it? Calm also creates mystery. When you don't react the way people expect, they start studying you. They wonder what you're thinking. They try to read you. They become curious. And curiosity is the doorway to fascination. Someone who reacts emotionally is easy to read. Someone who stays calm is intriguing. But mastering emotional control isn't about suppressing everything. Suppression creates pressure that eventually explodes. Control is different. Control is awareness, regulation, and choice. You feel anger, but you choose how to express. You feel fear, but you choose how to act anyway. You feel excitement, but you choose how to channel it. You become deliberate instead of impulsive. This is especially powerful in relationships. When you don't overreact, don't chase emotionally, don't beg for reassurance, you create emotional gravity. You become the stable center instead of the storm. People lean towards stability. They crave it. They want to feel anchored to something steady. Calm people also listen better. They don't interrupt to defend themselves. They don't need to win every conversation. They don't take everything personally. That makes others feel heard, respected, and safe. And when people feel safe, they open up. They trust. They connect. So calm doesn't just command respect. It builds connection. But the deepest power of emotional control is internal. When you stop being hijacked by every feeling, you gain freedom. You're no longer on an emotional roller coaster dictated by external events. You become consistent, predictable to yourself, stable in your identity. You stop waking up depending on how others treat you. You stop going to bed replaying conversations in your head. You stop being dragged by every emotional wave. You become the ocean, not the wave. And when you become that person, centered, composed, grounded, your presence changes. People feel it. They feel your steadiness. They feel your control. They feel your confidence, even when you say nothing. They start craving your presence because in a noisy, reactive, chaotic world, you feel like quiet strength. Calm is not weakness. Calm is not passivity. Calm is not indifference. Calm is discipline. Calm is control. Calm is power. And the moment you master your emotio, instead of letting them master you, you become someone people can't ignore and can't forget. Most people talk too much, they explain too much, they justify too much. They feel the need to narrate every decision, every thought, every emotion, as if silence is a weakness and mystery is a flaw. But the truth is the opposite. The more you explain yourself, the more ordinary you become. The less you explain yourself, the more people start paying attention. Human beings are wired to be curious about what they don't fully understand. When everything about you is transparent, predictable, and exposed, there is nothing left to discover. No tension, no intrigue, no reason to lean in. But when you hold back, when you don't reveal everything, when you allow gaps in understanding, people fill those gaps with their imagination. And imagination is powerful. Oversharing often comes from insecurity. It's the subconscious attempt to control how others perceive you. You explain so they won't misunderstand you. You justify so they won't judge you. You clarify so they won't reject you. But in trying to control perception, you give away power. When you stop explaining yourself, you send a different message. I don't need you to understand me for me to be valid. That's a powerful statement, even when it's never spoken. Think about the people you find most intriguing. They don't tell you everything. They don't broadcast every thought. They don't react to every comment. They move quietly, they answer selectively, they speak with intention. Their silence makes you wonder. Their restraint makes you curious. Their unpredictability makes you pay attention. Mystery creates gravity. When you explain every choice, you remove that gravity. You make yourself easy to decode, easy to categorize, easy to forget. But when you allow ambiguity, people start studying you. They try to read your expressions, analyze your words, interpret your silence. You occupy their mind without trying. Stopping the need to explain yourself also changes your posture in life. You no longer feel obligated to defend your decisions. You no longer feel pressured to justify your boundaries. You no longer feel the need to persuade everyone to agree with you. You simply decide and move. Imagine how different your conversations would be if you didn't feel the urge to clarify everything. Someone questions your decision. Instead of launching into a long explanation, you simply say, "That's what I chose." Someone misunderstands you. Instead of chasing their approval, you let them misunderstand. Someone disapproves. Instead of convincing them, you stay grounded. That kind of composure is rare, and rarity attracts attention. Silence is one of the most underestimated tools in communication. When you don't immediately respond, when you pause before speaking, when you allow space in conversations, you shift the power dynamic. People start listening more closely. They wait for your words. They assign weight to your silence. Words become valuable when they are scarce. When you speak constantly, your words blend into noise. When you speak selectively, your words land with impact. Being mysterious doesn't mean being dishonest or manipulative. It means being selective with your energy, your information, and your emotional exposure. It means understanding that not everyone deserves access to your inner world. Some people only need to see the surface. Some people only earn deeper insight over time. This selectivity builds layers, and layers create depth. When you stop explaining yourself, you also stop over-investing emotionally. You stop trying to manage how others feel about you. You stop performing for approval. You become self-contained, and self-contained people feel powerful. People are drawn to what they can't easily grasp. When you're an open book, there's nothing to explore. When you're a closed book, people become curious. They want to turn the pages. They want to know more. They want your attention, your thoughts, your presence. But here's the deeper shift. Mystery isn't just external, it's internal. When you stop explaining yourself to others, you start explaining yourself, less to yourself. You stop overthinking every decision. You stop needing a logical justification for every intuition. You allow yourself to act from conviction, not from constant internal debate. That internal quiet is powerful. It sharpens your intuition, it strengthens your confidence, it reduces mental noise, and that internal calm translates into external presence. Mysterious people are not easily influenced. They don't reveal their next move. They don't broadcast their plans. They don't seek validation for their direction. They move quietly, deliberately, and independently. And that independence is magnetic. In relationships, mystery creates attraction. When you don't over-explain your feelings, when you don't overshare your insecurities, when you don't constantly seek reassurance, you create emotional space. That space invites interest, it invites pursuit, it invites connection. In professional settings, mystery commands respect. When you don't justify every decision, when you don't over-communicate every thought, when you speak with precision, people perceive you as decisive and confident. They trust your judgment. They listen when you speak. The goal is not to be distant or cold. The goal is to be intentional, to understand that your inner world is valuable, and access to it should be earned, not given away freely. You don't need to explain why you value your time. You don't need to explain why you set boundaries. You don't need to explain why you walk away from what doesn't serve you. You just do. And in that doing, without explanation, you create an aura of self-assurance that people can't ignore. Mystery is not about hiding who you are. It's about revealing who you are selectively, strategically, and authentically. It's about allowing people to discover you over time rather than consuming you all at once. When you stop explaining yourself, you give people space to be curious. You give them something to think about. You give them a reason to pay attention. And in a world where everyone is shouting to be understood, the person who remains quietly enigmatic becomes unforgettable. Because sometimes, the most powerful statement is not what you say. It's what you choose not to explain. Most people are too available. They give their time freely, their energy freely, their attention freely, without asking whether it's earned. They answer every message instantly, say yes to every request, tolerate disrespect, and stay in situations that drain them, all because they're afraid of being seen as difficult, cold, or replaceable. But here's the truth most people never learn. What is easily given is easily taken for granted. Raising your standards is not about arrogance. It's not about looking down on others or acting superior. It's about understanding your value so deeply that you refuse to treat yourself as cheap. When you make access to earned, everything changes. Think about how you treat valuable things in your life. You protect them. You're selective about who touches them. You don't leave them exposed. You don't give them away to anyone who asks. You treat them with care because you know their worth. Now ask yourself, do you treat your time, your energy, your attention, and your presence with that same respect? Most people don't. They give themselves away in pieces, hoping someone else will recognize our worth. But value doesn't work like that. People take cues from how you treat yourself. If you treat yourself as optional, they will too. If you treat yourself as priceless, they'll think twice before wasting your time. Raising your standards means you stop tolerating behavior that disrespects you. You stop staying in rooms where you feel small. You stop entertaining conversations that drain you. You stop chasing people who treat you like a backup option. You begin to understand something fundamental. Access to you is a privilege, not a right. This shift changes your behavior in subtle but powerful ways. You stop replying to everything instantly. You stop explaining why you're busy. You stop apologizing for prioritizing yourself. You stop feeling guilty for saying no. No becomes a complete sentence. When you say no without over-explaining, people feel it. They realize your time isn't unlimited. Your energy isn't guaranteed. Your presence isn't automatic. And when something isn't guaranteed, it becomes valuable. Boundaries are the architecture of self-respect. Without boundaries, people walk in and out of your life with muddy shoes. With boundaries, people slow down, knock, and think before crossing the line. Raising your standards also means raising your expectations of yourself. You stop settling for mediocre habits, mediocre relationships, mediocre goals. You stop tolerating laziness in your own life. You start demanding more from your actions, your discipline, your environment, because standards aren't just about others. They're about you. When you raise your standards internally, your external world recalibrates. You naturally drift away from people and situations that don't align. You naturally attract environments that match your new level of self-respect. People feel when you are selective. They feel when your attention is earned, not automatic. And that feeling changes how they approach you. They become more intentional, more respectful, more careful with your time and energy. It's human psychology. Scarcity creates value. Accessibility creates familiarity. Familiarity creates complacency. If you're always there, always available, always agreeable, you become background noise. But when you become selective, when you choose where and how you show up, you become rare. And rare things are valued. Raising your standards also filters your relationships. Not everyone will stay. Some people will complain. Some will call you selfish, cold, or distant. That's the price of self-respect. When you change the rules of access, the people who benefited from your lack of boundaries will resist. But the people who respect you will adapt. They will rise to meet your standards. They will treat you with care because they understand your value. And here's the paradox. When you stop tolerating less, you receive more. Making access earned doesn't mean isolating yourself. It means curating your environment. It means choosing who gets your time, who gets your trust, who gets your vulnerability. It means understanding that not everyone deserves front row seats to your life. You wouldn't hand your house keys to a stranger. You wouldn't give your bank details to someone you just met. So why give your emotional energy, your time, your presence so freely? When you raise your standards, you become intentional with your presence. You show up where you choose, not where you're pulled. You invest in people who invest in you. You contribute where it matters. You withdraw where it doesn't. This intentionality is magnetic. People sense when your presence is a choice, not a habit. When you're in a room because you decided to be there, not because you had nothing better to do. When you're in a conversation because you value it, not because you're afraid of silence. That sense of choice gives your presence weight. Raising your standards also changes how you walk, speak, and decide. You stop rushing. You stop overcommitting. You stop trying to prove yourself. You become comfortable with selective participation. You understand that being everywhere for everyone means being nowhere for yourself. When you make access you create a dynamic where people step up. They respect your time. They communicate clearly. They think before crossing boundaries. They value your approval, not because you demand it, but because it's not given freely. And in that dynamic, your presence becomes something people want, not something they assume. The most powerful people are not the most available. They are the most deliberate. They choose where to invest their energy. They protect their time. They guard their mental space. They understand that their presence is an asset. So they treat it like one. Raising your standards is an act of self-respect. Making access earned is an act of self-preservation. And together they transform how the world sees you. You stop being taken for granted. You stop being overlooked. You stop being undervalued. You become someone people approach with intention. And in a world where everyone is desperate to be included, the person who chooses when and where to be included becomes powerful. Because the moment you stop giving yourself away freely, your presence becomes something people have to earn. Most people are drifting, They wake up reacting to notifications, opinions, expectations, and trends. They move because they're pushed. They decide because they're influenced. They change direction because someone else approved or disapproved. They are not leading their life. They are being led. To become unshakably self-directed is to reverse that dynamic completely. It means your actions come from your internal compass, not external pressure. It means you move with intention, not impulse. It means you are guided by purpose, not popularity. And when you become that your presence changes. People feel it immediately. Self-directed individuals have a quiet certainty about them. They don't ask for permission to exist. They don't wait for consensus to act. They don't look around to see what everyone else is doing before they decide who to be. They have an internal authority that makes external validation optional. That internal authority is magnetic. When you are self-directed, your days are not random. You know what you're working toward, even if others don't understand it. You have priorities that don't change based on mood or social pressure. You make decisions based on values, not convenience. That clarity gives you momentum, and momentum is visible. People notice when someone is moving with purpose. They notice when someone doesn't get distracted by every trend, drama, or opinion. They notice when someone stays consistent while others fluctuate. Consistency creates trust. Trust creates influence. Influence creates presence. To be self-directed means you are internally anchored. Criticism doesn't derail you. Praise doesn't inflate you. Disagreement doesn't stop you. Approval doesn't control you. You listen, you consider, but you don't surrender your direction. You are the driver. This doesn't mean you are stubborn or closed-minded. It means you are grounded. You can adapt without losing yourself. You can learn without dissolving. You can change direction without being blown around. Self-direction begins with clarity. You know what matters to you. You know what you stand for. You know what you're willing to tolerate and what you're not. You know where you're going, even if the path is still forming. Most people avoid the clarity because it requires responsibility. If you are self-directed, you can't blame your life on others. You can't blame society, family, or circumstances forever. You become accountable for your trajectory. And accountability is power. When you take ownership of your direction, your actions gain weight. You don't drift into relationships, you choose them. You don't fall into careers, you build them. You don't stumble into habits, you design them. That design creates identity. People who are self-directed don't chase purpose, they live it daily in small actions. They wake up with intention. They structure their time. They invest in growth. They cut distractions. They move forward even when motivation is low. Discipline becomes their language, and discipline is deeply attractive, not in a superficial way, but in an energetic way. People feel drawn to someone who is moving with certainty, someone who doesn't need constant reassurance, someone who doesn't depend on others to define their worth or direction. When you are self-directed, you also become less reactive. You don't chase every opportunity that looks shiny. You don't panic when things go wrong. You don't get lost when others disagree. You stay on your path. That stability makes others feel grounded around you. People crave direction in a world full of confusion. They crave leaders, anchors, and examples. When you embody self-direction, you become that anchor. Without preaching, without forcing, simply by existing in alignment with your values. Self-direction also frees you from comparison. When you know your path, someone else's success doesn't threaten you. Someone else's opinion doesn't define you. Someone else's lifestyle doesn't distract you. You become focused, not fragmented. Fragmentation is common. Focus is rare. And rarity attracts attention. Being unshakably self-directed means you trust yourself. You trust your judgment. You trust your intuition. You trust your process. Even when others doubt, even when results are slow, even when the path is unclear, you keep moving. That inner trust is visible. It shows in how you speak, how you walk, how you make decisions. It shows in your refusal to beg for approval. It shows in your comfort with solitude. It shows in your willingness to walk alone. Most people fear walking alone. Self-directed people understand that solitude is sometimes the price of authenticity, and authenticity is magnetic. When you are self-directed, you stop performing. You stop shaping yourself for audiences. You stop adjusting your goals to impress others. You live according to your own blueprint. That blueprint becomes your signature. People don't crave someone who is trying to be everything. They crave someone who is fully something, fully aligned, fully intentional, fully self-led. Self-direction also creates resilience. When setbacks happen, and they will, you don't collapse. You recalibrate. You adapt. You continue. Your identity is not tied to one outcome, one relationship, one job, or one opinion. You are bigger than circumstances. That resilience is powerful. People feel safe around someone who isn't easily shaken, someone who doesn't spiral, someone who stays grounded in uncertainty. So how do you become unshakably self-directed? You decide, you choose your values, you set your priorities, you create structure, you follow through. You reflect, you adjust, you continue, you stop waiting to be led and start leading yourself. You stop outsourcing your life to other people's expectations. You stop waiting for permission to grow. You stop asking the world who you should be. You answer that question, yourself. And when you do, something profound happens. Your presence gains weight. Your words gain credibility. Your silence gains authority. Your actions gain meaning. People start to feel that you are someone who is going somewhere, someone who is not lost, someone who is not easily swayed, someone who is internally driven. And that is deeply attractive, because in a world of followers, the self-directed individual becomes a quiet leader. And leaders, especially those who lead themselves, are always noticed. The moment you become unshakably self-directed, you stop orbiting other people's lives and start becoming the center of your own. And when you become the center of your own life, others naturally orbit around you. They will crave your presence the moment you stop trying to earn it. The moment you stop chasing validation, the moment you master your emotions instead of letting them master you, the moment you stop explaining yourself and allow mystery to exist, the moment you raise your standards and make access to you earned, the moment you become unshakably self-directed, everything changes. You stop being background noise in your own life. You stop being an extra in someone else's story. You stop shrinking to fit rooms that were never built for your growth. You become the person who walks into a room and shifts the energy without speaking. You become the person people watch, listen to, and respect. You become the person whose absence is felt and whose presence is remembered. This isn't about manipulation. This isn't about ego. This is about alignment. When you align with your values, your discipline, your purpose, and your self-respect, you don't need to beg for attention. Attention finds you. You don't need to force respect. Respect follows you. You don't need to chase connection. Connection seeks you out. So stop asking the world for permission to be powerful. Stop negotiating your worth. Stop explaining why you deserve space. Take it, own it, live in it. Because the moment you become someone you deeply respect, the world will reflect that back to you. And one day, without you trying, without you asking, without you chasing, they will crave your presence.